Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Let's explain what it is.
Welcome to the 7 Reasons to Back It. Our show's concept is that each creator is invited on to answer 7 questions about their crowdfunding campaigns. Over the 7 rounds of questions, creators are eliminated by a guest judge, and only the best answers move the creator onward. The creators have 60 seconds to answer these questions. The first 5 questions are given by the host, and then the last 2 are picked by the guest judge. Guest judges have Hell's Kitchen rules, meaning the judge picks when people are eliminated, and even if they're not, one round can have 0 eliminations or up to 5. Judges will be giving real-time feedback at the end of each round to help the creators learn. Judges can and may ask follow-up questions at their discretion at the end of each round. The winner goes on to get 15 minutes of fame, or can choose to get the first 15 minutes of the next upcoming show. And in that case, the runner-up gets the spotlight. This is hosted by the Comics Devil and proud comic book advocate, Mr. Anderson, which you can find the devil in his tails at MrAnderson.com. This program is brought to you by comicbookadvocates.com and the Advocating Network. All right, let's introduce our guest judge for this week and the contestants who want to prove their crowdfunding is worth the spotlight.
What's going on, guys? I'm your guest judge this week, Chuck Pineau, writer, editor, and just handsome dude all around. Glad to be here. Can't wait to see these guys put all their stuff into action and see what great books we got going on today.
And I am your announcer voice, Mr. Anderson. I will be the voice that winds up keeping this show under control. And I happen to be the winner on the last episode. So we actually get to start. I chose the actual, egotistical, I will start the next show and make sure I'm at the beginning of the show. So here is actually what you guys get to see is we have to switch because I don't have it loaded here because it's from my Kickstarter, Cat Dad and Supermom, and I'm pretty excited about it. We're off a Kickstarter, but we are now on Indiegogo on demand, so check it out. An all-ages tale that teaches morals with farts and shows the power of imagination that will entertain everyone in your family, including the parents reading the book. Thank you for hitting play and allowing us to introduce you to Cat Dad and Supermom, the award-winning Farts with Morals storytelling awesome adventure that people seem to love. And we could keep going that way. We could use words that could try to get you to be excited and convinced to buy it, but I'd rather just be honest with you. I'd rather be humble with you and tell you why I created the story. You see that little boy over my shoulder, right over there, and the other side, the Supermom, and the big elephant that farts? All of that is based on my boy. He's a special needs 5-year-old who I love with all my heart. And he has made me a better man and has taught me what unconditional love is. So if this story is about him, the standard had to be higher. That's why I got one of the best artists in the world in Raheel Mohsin. I got Chuck Pineau, who has done such great work as an editor and as a writer himself, to be part of this. Both of them became co-creators because of how much passion went into this. It was about passion for creating a top-notch story that was meant to entertain your entire family, and I think we did that. The rest, they're all keywords. They're all ways to convince you to do it. Truthfully, this is a story that matters to me, and it had to be one of the best stories that I wanted to share with you. It advocates for people who get bullied, and it advocates for the right things to do when you see someone get bullied. It advocates for being a better human being, but it also represents my son. And because of that standard, because of the fact that my son is in this book, it had to be one of the best things I could create, probably in my entire career. Anytime my son is attached to something, it is that high of a standard for me. So if you're looking for a reason to back this Kickstarter, it's because, well, because I love my son, and I wouldn't put anything out with his name on it that wasn't amazing. Thank you for watching, sharing, and backing Cat Dad and Supermom, and Ella Fart never forgets. I'm happy to report that we have given out all the rewards that have been going out that we have gotten reward surveys for. So we're going to focus on Indiegogo. I'm going to yield the rest of my time to these amazing creators who are here. As you start your introductions, please actually tell us your pitch, because that's the first question. Chuck has something to say before we start.
Yeah, I don't know why Rob's not saying this, but as a co-creator of that book, there is something important to say, and that is that there's a really cool new group called Terraform Comics, and Cat Dad and Supermom is going to be one of the head books in that publishing wing. So I thought that was very important to let all of you guys know. Yeah, thank you very much. We're very excited about it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was one of the flagship books that they're actually launching it with. I was going to mention it on my wrap-up later, but I have no problem mentioning it twice in the show. I just didn't want to be a ham, so someone got to be a ham for me. So yeah, we're gonna go around the room. You guys are gonna start with your pitches. That is literally the first question. Because there are technically 5, we don't have to do any eliminations until I think the third round would be the first time Chuck has to eliminate. So the first 2
But
are
I can, right?
It's a bad pitch. And of course, we have, as Chuck had mentioned before we went on screen, and now we will talk about it. We have the dreaded, the ultimate nightmare, the timer. The timer will set every 1 minute, but not for the pitch. You guys are lucky. The pitch doesn't count for that. You guys can pitch it how you normally pitch it. So we're going to go around the room. We're going to talk to everyone in order. Matt, tell us about your project, and we'll go around. So, Matt, you're up first.
All right. My project is Moby Dick Back from the Deep. In 1851, Herman Melville published an account of a white whale that rampaged through the high seas. The beast, known as Moby Dick, destroyed numerous boats and cost many sailors their lives. The end of Melville's tale saw Moby Dick disappear into the ocean. Today, the whale is back.
And where can they follow you on social media? Because it's your intro too.
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at @TheMattSchorr and on Instagram at @TheSchorr. 2 best places to find me.
And introducing the great Ruben Romero.
Well, I don't know about the great, but definitely Ruben Romero. The book that's on Kickstarter right now is The Agency, and the intrigue of espionage and the wonders of magic collide in a tale that launches the world of International Agency of Magic. The elevator pitch is Harry Potter meets Mission Impossible minus the wands. And it centers in around Riley Dean, a 15-year-old mage who discovers that he can tap into and perform multiple facets and levels of different magic, unlike all the other mages that inhabit our world. And you can find me on Instagram at Random Jedi Solo or on Twitter at ThinkAlikePro, where I obnoxiously tweet at Donald Trump.
All right. And we have a very capable... You like that? The very capable? Come on. That was good.
That was great. All right, everyone. I'm Jonathan Hedrick, and my project is Capable, issues number 1 and 2, live right now on Kickstarter. Capable is a concept superhero book where everyone in the world that has a disability wakes up one day with a superpower that's opposite of what their handicap was. Our main character focuses on Derek Davidson, who was using a wheelchair. Wakes up one day, can run super fast. He's a speedster now. And we see an origin story in the first issue. Issue 2, we see how some people aren't using what the powers that they gain for good. We're going to start seeing some bad people out there who have lived this life of ridicule and being made fun of and so forth, and not necessarily doing what they could do for good.
Where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Facebook, Jonathan Hedrick, or Twitter and Instagram, my full name minus all the vowels.
All right. And from all the way across the pond, we had to send a satellite up into space to get her here. Tell them who you are.
Hi, I'm Eskander. I'm the writer and creative director of Iva. Mainframe is watching issue 1. It's currently on Indiegogo. It's a cyberpunk comic series based on a love of 80s sci-fi and fantasy fiction. Imagine 1984 meets Blade Runner. Imagine social media becoming a governing body, and everyone's got surveillance implants, and everything you do is automatically transferred onto their timeline. So there's not much you can or can't do without being watched.
And where can they follow you on social media?
Social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Indiegogo, and Twitter as well.
All right, now to the Judge Chuck to see what he thought of all the pitches.
So I'm actually taking notes. Matt, I really liked your pitch. Well formed. Hey, between you and I, you've done this pitch an awful lot, haven't you?
A few times, yes.
Yeah, right. Like that almost sounds like you've got it written down, edited, paired. Well played. That was very good. Ruben, solid pitch. Again, really liked it. Actually, you guys all did really good pitches. It was solid. Just watch your ums. When you do these pitches, you gotta pretend. You want to pretend like you're literally in the elevator with that person who can make or break your career. So those are things that you want to watch. You want to get in every second you possibly can. Don't give them a second to go. Oh. Again, solid. John, again, also liked your pitch a lot. I would say for you, bring up your passion. Remember why you did this and why it's important to you. You come off a little almost monotoned, and so you really just you have an amazing story that's really excitable and has a lot of really cool stuff that I'm sure is personal. Let us feel that. You don't even have to tell us about it. We need to feel it. Is it Anas?
NS.
Oh, love it. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Again, beautiful pitch. Really awesome. The only thing I was missing was I would have liked to have maybe heard just a little bit about characters and a little bit more about kind of the story and stuff. But overall, it was really good. I'm glad that I don't have to get rid of anyone because that would have been tough. So I'm not gonna.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, time to move on to the first more difficult questions. That's easy. Everyone can get that. But this one's going to be harder. And we're going to start a little bit harder for everyone just to make it interesting. So we're going to get rid of the hard question now where no one gets eliminated. So here it is. What do you believe separates your crowdfunding from the thousands of other campaigns out there? So why is yours better than even all the people in the room? Because remember, there's going to be eliminations coming soon. We so far haven't had Anthony, so Anthony's might be disqualifying himself. So make this count, guys. Get this one out of the way. We're going to start around with Matt. Matt, you got 1 minute. We're going to put the dreaded monster on the screen now. That's right. Here comes Mr. Timer. 1 minute. Tell us why your crowdfunding's better or why it's more interesting. Better isn't necessarily always good, but why is it something people should back?
Okay, you're not going to find a story or artwork or anything like my comic anywhere else out there. I defy you to find a story about a zombified version of Moby Dick coming back and causing chaos everywhere that he goes. So the artwork is very unique by Joe Bilicic. I can't talk enough about his great work. It's gorgeous. It's creepy. It's perfectly accentuates the story that we're trying to tell. So yeah, it's unique, it's different, and it's creepy, and it's a whole lot of fun.
And he beat the timer. Look at that.
That was good.
The timer will get the next person. The next person's Ruben. Ruben, you have 1 minute.
Oh, I'm a talker. I'm definitely gonna the clock's gonna beat me. Better or more interesting. I don't have those answers. What I do know is that I've poured my heart, soul, blood, sweat, tears into this book. The agency is definitely something that I consider as my baby. The first 5 issues are out already, who have been drawn by Eric Coda, colored by Ross Hughes. 2 industry staples. One works for DC, one works for Marvel as a storyboard artist. And now we have a whole new look with issue 6 with Sylvester Aguilar coming on board and doing the art. That takes us back to kind of that 90s kind of Marvel look. So, and it deals with, with magic and growing up and being different. So I think that it has a little bit of everything for everybody.
All right. Ruben survived the dreaded dinosaur known as the timer clock. Can the capable writer Jonathan be capable of beating the clock?
All right. Capable sets itself apart from many other campaigns out there right now, especially those in comics, because it has a story that I believe a lot of people can relate to. Mostly everyone has probably felt like an outsider at some point in their lives. I know I certainly have, and I pulled my high school teenage angst into the writing of Capable. So I think a lot of people will be able to identify, no matter what age group they're in, with some of the trials and tribulation that these characters in this book have gone through, and may understand the actions that they take after the fact.
All right. Looks like we're not going to get the alarm to go off on that one either. And we're going to go to someone who has a giant clock where they live, Big Ben. So I don't know. I think she's going to beat it. Let's see.
So basically, Ivor was based on sort of a few of my life experiences, you know, growing up with a love of sci-fi. Also coming, you know, so I was born in Baghdad and we moved to the UK when I was about 3. During my teenage years, I spent it in Saudi Arabia, and I was actually there during the Desert Storm War. And there was a lot of angst growing up because, you know, I knew what it was like having sort of a mad dictator ruling over you and not feeling like you had the liberty or the freedom to speak. And then, you know, sort of through the war and kind of like people hating each other purely because of, you know, what religion they were. So all this experience that I had, I just poured it out into the comic, and I didn't want to sort of do something that was too much, you know, on reality of what's going on. I wanted that escapism. Oops.
It's easy to get lost when you're talking about your comic. We're going to give it to our judge. Tell us what you heard and who would have been eliminated if this round was going to get an elimination.
Wow. Again, not easy. So I liked Matt, very original take, and how he mentioned that. I loved how he got excited about his team. That was, for me, that was the most exciting thing about that. A lot of you, not all of you mentioned your teams, but those two did. It was more of a mention. He was very excited by his artist, and that's a big deal to me. Ruben, you were very honest. I loved right away when you came out and you were like, yeah, I'm not necessarily the best. Like that got to me right away. I love that you mentioned that there were 5 issues, that there's more to it. I think that's a very good selling point and something important for people to remember and bring up. And I also, again, you mentioned your team. I like that. John, I loved how you went, and actually you and Anas, and I'm probably fucking that up again. You guys, I'm gonna trip over it all day. You guys both mentioned your backstories, and that's kind of the funny difference between top and bottom, is that the top 2, they more mentioned their story and that kind of stuff. You guys more mentioned your background and what made you excited about it. So very, very different takes. Obviously, Anas, you going into the war and all that kind of stuff, it's really hard to say, oh yeah, after all this stuff that she's gone through and these amazing tales, yeah, you're gone. So I don't think I could have done that. Again, it would have been really tough. It probably would have been between Ruben and John if I had to knock someone out. So yeah, but still, you guys did really good, and there was no one who was absolutely like, oh, you're bad, you need to go. So keep it up.
You just remember to send all your hate mail to Chuck, not me.
Put my email down at the bottom there.
Now you see why I didn't want to be the judge. I just wanted to be
Where do you live, by the way?
Texas, and there's a lot of reasons.
I actually live in Scotland, not too far from you. So, you know, come on over, take a boat. We can talk.
You do not sound like you've all been at Scotland. All right, so we're going on to the next round. And the next round's going to get a little easier. I'm going to give you guys an easy one because it's the last time we're not going to have an elimination. So I'm going to give you the easiest one left, and that's what's the inspiration behind the story? What inspired you guys, you know? You told us why you believed you were different than everyone else, but the inspiration matters. But to tell that inspiration in just 60 seconds, now that's the difficult part. So we're going to go ahead and we'll go in reverse order. We'll start with, we'll give the lady ladies, you get to start us off. So go for it.
All right. So basically, I started off. I love Blade Runner, and I love like Flashdance and all the dance movies, and I love that escapism. And so that's kind of what started it off. And just I love the idea of the future and what it holds. Back to the Future was a massive inspiration. And also Ian Flux, I'm a big fan, and that's how I met Timothy Green II, and he did all the artwork. So it was just everything I love in terms of sci-fi and dance, and just putting it all into one big, massive story that kicks ass. And you've got a beautiful, blonde pinups, kind of reminiscent of the Vargas girls. So it was kind of getting that cyberpunk and fun. And I just got fed up of, depressing post-apocalyptic worlds, and this was kind of a new take on it.
All right. I like that. She got it just right there. I let it ring anyway because I like the sound. Because I'm a child. I'm still a child. That's who I am.
Aren't we all?
We all are, yes.
All right, Jonathan, take us away. What is the inspiration behind Capable?
Well, I couldn't go without saying that a lot of the inspiration comes from the social outcast type of stories that we are all familiar with, like X-Men and Teen Titans, Runaways, and so forth. But I feel a lot of those titles, they begin with the social outcast, and then they lose it throughout the many issues and story arcs. So I'm challenging myself to maintain that this is a book, a series about people who have been and lived a life of handicap, but now have a complete opposite life that they're being thrust into, and now have to deal with that in a responsible way, if not even more challenging than the lives that they lived before. So I'm hoping to keep that theme alive throughout this series, and hopefully many arcs that come.
All right, we're going to move on to Ruben, and I'll stop it this time.
Oh, there it is. One more time.
Never mind. I didn't get to stop it in time. I don't know why. Kid, what can I say? Ruben, take it away.
All right. So I'm going to get a little deep here, and I'm sorry, forgive me, but it's the truth. And it's the reason why I continue to do what I'm doing, because I have a great job and I get paid well, and I could just leave all this creative stuff behind. But in 2014, my mother passed away from gallbladder cancer, which is a very rare form of cancer, very aggressive. So we didn't get a lot of time with her from the time that she was diagnosed to the time that she passed away. And while she was fighting to stay around, I began writing the agency. And one of the last things that she told me was that she always knew that I was destined for greatness, and that her baby boy was the one that she always could count on. And she told me, she said, don't you ever give up, and you take the money that I'm leaving you, and you push and you push and you push until you get to where you want to be.
For some reason the clock went out. I don't know what happened there. Great story, Ruben. We're going to move on to Matt. I feel bad, Matt. You got to go after that, Matt. Good luck.
Sorry about that. I just, it's the truth.
I'll just say it. I think Ruben won the round. And
yeah, how do you like that?
Inspiration sometimes comes from weird places, and for me, it came from YouTube. I saw one of these horrible mashup videos where somebody put footage of an old made-for-TV Moby Dick movie with footage of a nuclear bomb being dropped to make it look like Ahab somehow traveled through time and dropped an atom bomb on the whale and finally got his revenge. So the seed was planted there, this idea of hunting the whale throughout time. And I'm not much of a sci-fi writer. I like horror a lot better. So for me, it just became more about the whale just still being out there throughout the centuries, and Ahab out there throughout those same centuries, hunting him throughout all of eternity because he's been cursed. And just what would that look like, and what would that be like? And so the story just grew out of that concept.
you beat the buzzer, and now it's time for that mean guy who's going to come in here.
Do I actually have to is this the round where I have to start letting someone go, or is that next round?
Well, it's always your choice, of course. Like, I can't enforce it, but I will say this: if you don't let someone go the next round, someone has to go.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to bring it down to next round. Wow, guys, holy crap! You're dicks because you're gonna ruin me next round. This was really good. Ennis, I loved your inspirations. I love how you went into that. John, you took out of so many of the things that you loved growing up. X-Men. I mean, a lot of that connected with me too. So I completely get you there. Ruben, how the hell would anyone be able to fucking knock you out after talking about your mom? Like, there's no way. There's no way. It was like the meanest trick ever. You know, you can only play that one round, right? You don't get to mention mom again.
But that was save that for the next round.
you asked for the inspiration. The lady left me with parting words, and I am fighting hard to put, to keep pushing like she told me to.
That was beautiful, dude. You did very good. And Matt, I love where your brain goes. I love that your brain went there and you were just like, dude, yeah, I want to keep exploring this idea and playing with it. Yeah, I would have really had to fight. I honestly don't know whose was worst. Ruben was probably one of the best because you can't play the dead mom card and lose. Like, you just can't. So the rest of you guys, I hope you have deceased family members. I don't know what to tell you. This next round's going to be tough.
So bad.
The minute you say blonde bombshell, you had me. I was
right. Yeah. There was a lot of really good stuff thrown in there. Yeah, this is going to be the tough one, folks.
And this is what we like. We like to see this passion coming around. So here we go, guys. Here's the I'll give you guys this one. Tell us your favorite element about this story and franchise. So what about this is your favorite thing? And I'm even going to give you guys a bonus here. No timer on this one, because this is really where you put your stake up. As long as you're not trying to take 5 to 10 minutes, I'm not going to say a word, and I'm just going to let you talk. We're going to bring you up on the screen, because, of course, this is the first round where eliminations might happen. So we'll go in a random order just to make things fun and make it game showy. And we'll start with someone who's never started before this. We'll start with Jonathan.
All right. Well, I think what really excites me about this particular series is that when I first was thinking about it and brainstorming, it kind of scared me in a way to even touch something that could be considered very sensitive or potentially offensive. But then I thought to myself, well, if there's something scary about it, then maybe there's something I should pursue about it as well. So I kind of held my breath when that first issue came out. And the first signing I did for it, a person in a wheelchair was the beginning of the line. I didn't know if she was going to chew me out or celebrate or congratulate me. And thankfully, her and her boyfriend were fans. They really liked it, and I haven't had any negative feedback about it. So I think that's what's really pulling me to have a lot of passion for this project, because I think even without me pandering to that culture, it still is something that they can appreciate, and especially in superhero books where we don't have a Batgirl in a wheelchair anymore, and there's not really something that they can identify with in comic books right now. So that keeps pulling me to dive deeper and give this series as much as I can.
And I will say, and I can say this as a crippled person, and yes, I can use the word cripple because I'm a cripple. I will say that I appreciate everything you've done. You don't know how the world looks at people in a wheelchair until you're sitting in one, and people give you that look. And I've been in it. Luckily, I'm not in it now, but there's a good possibility the damage I have will one day put me back in a wheelchair. So I thank you for actually discussing it in a way that was beautiful, and I really appreciate that. And kudos to you for that. And we'll go with we'll go with Matt to follow that one up. Matt, you're just following up the hard ones, but I'm liking it because you're doing good with it. So we're gonna give it to you.
Okay. If there's anything that I like best about this story, it's the chance to play with the concept of having a really absurd situation, like a zombified Moby Dick is rather absurd. There's no way around it. And then marrying that with some actual real characters and real people dealing with this situation. All of my favorite horror stories, my favorite writers, Stephen King is, of course, among them, but there's also Joe R. Lansdale. He wrote a great story that I love called Bubba Hotep, where there's just this absurd, crazy scenario, but you have these very real characters dealing with it, and you feel their pain with all the tragedy that they're dealing with because of it. So that was what I really wanted to play with this story. I didn't want to throw in just pieces of meat for Moby Dick to come up and devour. I wanted to have real people who experience the tragedy of all the chaos that he causes. And that was the thing. I don't know if fun is the right word for it, but it's something I really was able to sink my teeth into and get into with describing how these characters, how horrified they are by what happens and how they deal with the aftermath afterwards.
I can see Ruben just wanting in. He's like, give me the hot tag. Give me the hot tag.
No, I'm actually just really impressed with Jonathan and Matt, and it's just like, you know, these are really great stories, and I'm just like, well, mine's just a magic story. But you know, one thing that I can get excited about, and one thing that I do love about the agency and the franchise, is the sense of family. Riley Dean is an orphan when he first gets introduced to the International Agency of Magic, and slowly but surely begins to develop relationships with each of our agents. You know, Remo being a father figure, Victoria Winter, the lead of the agency, the team leader, becomes sort of like a mother to him. And then Ao and Paul are two brothers that he never had. And again, you know, when you're different and you're thrust into new situations, it can be scary, and it can be something that you might not think that you're ready for. And having a support system like a family is what helps you become the person that they know you can be. So for me, it's about that. It's about my readers being able to sit back and maybe feeling like even in their own family they don't fit in, or maybe in their friend circle they don't fit in, but that as long as they have those people that care about them, they will continue to fight for them. So to me, it's about family. It's always been about family.
All right, that's beautiful. I love that. But what I also love is blonde bombshells, and I gotta be honest, the accent wins me over every time.
Hello.
Where is yours?
So I think there's been a lot of talk about sort of female heroines where they're just beautiful, but they're not really sort of, clued up. The thing I like about Iva is that she's a bioengineer trying to cure brainstem disease. Sort of going back to my previous experience, my husband died from a spinal brain tumor. And, you know, one of the things where I felt helpless was I couldn't help him. And with the comic, sort of with my character, she is trying to regenerate cranial nerves using nanobots. And I kind of, she's got this character where she's a mix between Steve McQueen and Deadpool, where she can be really icy, but then really kind of sardonic with her sense of humor. And sort of she is up against a massive regime, and it's just her. It's kind of like the underdog story. So yeah, that's this, and also the stylization sort of creating this world, that she is in. It's super slick, and it's very reminiscent of, sort of what I'm trying to achieve. Sort of in this very sort of sci-fi glam world.
I love that. I love that story. And we're going to hand it off to Chuck. But before we do, I will say this. You guys have impressed the devil today, and that's not easy. The Indie Devil is impressed by every one of you. So even though one person can only win us playing the video in the end, no one's getting eliminated from the chat room today. Everyone gets to stay and answer to the very last round to win over the audience. So congratulations. You've all done a great job of winning me over. We can carry all four on. And thank you, Ennis, for sharing such a beautiful memory with us. Same thing to Ruben. You guys rock. I love the passion that comes out of you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. Chuck, your turn.
They're all dicks. They're all dicks. I was hoping I needed one person to suck. Like one person who I'm like, everyone in the room knows you're going first. And like, no idea. I'm not even still 100% sure. What was the exact question you asked? Because that's what I'm going to take, is that I'm not sure everyone answered that question dead on. So what was the exact question that was asked?
The exact question for those listening at home was, tell us your favorite element about the story franchise. And I have to be honest, Chuck, I think they nailed it in their own ways. I think you're right. I don't think that any one of them missed. I heard all of them. I mean, I'm not the judge. I'm just the devil. So take it as you will. I don't like rules. I want to keep them all. I don't have the hard choice. Now, remember, the judge, you do get to keep. Actually, you have Hell's Kitchen rules. You cannot eliminate now and eliminate 2 next round. But that'd be even harder. And remember, you only have one last question that is my question. And I'll tell you what the next question is. I'll give everyone the heads up what's coming so you guys can start thinking about it. So here is the last question you guys get from me, at least. The rest are going to be Chuck's questions. So then he'll be an easier time eliminating. So I'm sure he's going to look for reasons to get rid of you. You're all awesome. So he's going to have to be like, I need to find a weak spot. So he's going to go after it. So here it is. Tell us about your main character. I gave a real easy one for the next round because I knew this round was probably going to be a big emotional one. So I wanted it to be like a breathable round. So it's going to be even harder or easier depending on the main characters. I can tell you Ines has got a great character and so does Ruben. Matt's only got a dick. Matt's only got a dick.
Yeah, but it's Moby, man. It's Moby.
It's Moby.
Okay.
It's Moby the Dick. Okay.
I'm sorry, Moby. Please don't send your hate mail to me.
Okay. You guys are rough. I don't want to get rid of 2 on the next round, so I have to do it this round. Man, this is tough. Okay. I have to. If I'm really looking at it, I think, and I'm sorry, John, you're my boy. I think I'm gonna have to pick you. And the reason for it is that I don't think you fully really got in and necessarily identified your key elements that you liked about it. There were some stuff that you kind of went around, and I have to tell you, I loved the story about the con show and all that kind of stuff, like the show and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not sure that you necessarily really nailed down those elements. So for that reason, I'm going to have to say thank you so much for showing up. But honestly, you guys are all dicks. You made this very difficult. Thank you. Your fight. Keep it up.
See, Jonathan, I told you people hate cripples. People just
I know. I can't win.
That's so good. Jonathan, I'm gonna reach out to you on Facebook, brother. I love the book. I haven't backed it yet, but I'm going to, and I want to talk a little bit with you. So,
Cool.
so just look out for my DM, okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate everyone. Being on these things, I learn a lot. So that's why I get involved. So
and don't
thanks
worry,
for everyone.
you don't have to go anywhere because I broke the rules and everyone gets to stay because you're all awesome. So
Okay.
Yeah, please stick around.
and by all
Sounds
means,
good.
boo Chuck in every one of the times you get the answer. By all means. Just be like, start off everything. Well, I don't hate crippled people like Chuck. That's how you answer every question.
That's okay, because I'm pretty sure he's not going to bring me around for the 3rd freak show. So I probably talked myself out of a job.
All right. So we're going to move on to our next question. You guys know it. Tell us about your main character. The only person to have not gone first now is Matt. So, Matt, tell us about the dick.
Well, the whale is actually not the main character of my story. The main character, we see this whole story through the eyes of a teenage girl named Catherine Barlow, because I thought there would be nobody more vulnerable than a kid dealing with something so horrifying. So Catherine Barlow, her pain becomes our pain. Her struggle is our struggle as she witnesses her friends, family, her town, people die, people are hurt, there's devastation, and she witnesses all of this, and she experiences it already from a bad place because she's the mayor's daughter, and her mayor has just lost a brutal and ugly election, and he's actually on his way out. And so the election was so nasty that the nastiness spilled over into the family. So on top of dealing with this horrible situation with this gigantic beast just killing people and causing chaos, she's also dealing with the fact that the entire town despises her father because they've been trained to. it's one of the things with local elections, unlike, like a national election, is when the presidential election is over, the guy who loses basically goes away and we don't see him again. But when you're in a small town and you have a nasty election, people know everybody. People still know the guy who lost the election. He's still there, and everybody has to find some kind of way to coexist. And I work in journalism, or I did work in journalism for 10 years, and I witnessed one such election. So that was a big inspiration for that part of the story, the pain that these people are dealing with right now, just at the outset before the whale even shows up. So that's my main character, and she's the one who deals with all the struggles of this story.
And we're going to give Ruben the next in just because he said on Twitter he shits on politicians. And I thought it'd be a giggle to put in the next person.
I mean, not literally, but, with words. Riley Anderson Dean, what can I say about that orphan teenager who just has a lot of anger inside of him? He is a little bit of me. He's a little bit of Peter Parker and all of these other teenage boys who get thrust into fantastical situations that they aren't ready for by far. So they have to grow and they have to learn and they have to push themselves to be better. So Riley is definitely who you see the agency, through. He is our window into this world, even though there are a lot of co-stars between Remo, Victoria, Embry, Damien. We've got so many mages and so many bad guys that come in and out of this world. But the one constant is Riley Dean and who he is and why he is important. So it's kind of fun to kind of learn a little bit about him and then have a bunch of other questions. And then learn and get those answers and then find out that there's even more about him that you don't know. So it's a fun kind of game of like just turn the card at some point, to give you guys answers, but at the same time, keep enough to where you're interested and you come back and you want to learn more. So Riley Anderson Dean is our main focus, and he's the one that drives the story. Even though there's magical terrorist attacks and illusionist serial killers and all kinds of things going on, he is the main focus of the story.
All right. Now, I remember there being mention of a blonde bombshell.
Yeah, so Iva Donnell, she's a bioengineer and she's working in the Ardent Nation, but she's originally from a rival faction group who don't believe in implants and all this invasive technology. So it's kind of like she's always like internally wrestling with her duality of having these two contrasting philosophies that, are sort of very dominant in her life. And, so she is on her personal agenda trying to cure, the brainstem damage. And at the same time, she's up against, the governing body who wants to take her research and use it for a completely different end use, which could potentially hurt the people that raised her, potentially, using this nanobot technology to, control people's minds. And, it's kind of, a double-edged sword where she is trying to live up to her mum's reputation, who passed away. Sort of she was a brilliant scientist and she's kind of trying to live up to that. But at the same time, in the process of doing that, she really messes up. And, it's kind of a little bit about redemption, trying to do the right thing. And trying to sort of save the people that she loves. But at the same time, there is that sense of betrayal because she has joined the opposite team to try and achieve her goal. So in terms of her personality, she, it's pretty hard sometimes to try and illustrate somebody who's got the character of like an icy Steve McQueen type of sort of character where it's all, internal conflict. But then I thought, how about we bring in some Deadpool humor to her, so because I just, love a dark sense of humor. And, she's kind of not one to kind of like, fall apart in the face of tragedy. She will just, sort of, have a meltdown, laugh at it, and then try to find a way to fix it. So yeah, that's my character.
All I heard is that she talks dirty, and I went somewhere. I just got back. All right.
I was listening.
And speaking about getting back, here's Jonathan, who, I don't hate crippled people. I just want to say that, Jonathan. I don't hate them.
I appreciate that. So the main character in Capable, his name is Derek Davidson. And of course, that alliterative name was intentional. Like Ruben mentioned, his character pulls from Peter Parker, and so does Derek as well. Derek is your typical high school kid who's shy and awkward and bullied. He just happens to be in a wheelchair. I think Derek would still be that same person regardless of his disability, and it doesn't necessarily identify. It's not what makes him that way. He just happens to be in a wheelchair. So as we see throughout the series, he becomes more secure with himself, and it's not just because he has superpowers now, but he learns that being brave is more than just running into a burning building. Being brave is being honest with other people and honest with yourself as well. So Derek's going to see a huge growth throughout this series, not just with the people around him, but the bad guys too. They all have meaning. They all have a purpose. They're not robbing banks just to do it. Everyone in this book has a reason for what their actions are.
All right. I wouldn't want to be Chuck on this one. Those are some great answers.
So not only are you guys dicks, but so's Rob, because what I thought was, as you guys were talking, I was like, you know what? I have a cool idea. I'm going to let John have a minute to talk about his character, and that way maybe I'll be able to secure my place in the next book. But Rob goes away and gives them to him anyways. So now even my goodwill is shot. So I'm just going to end up being an ass regardless. Thank you for that. Okay, again, guys, really good round. I really liked it all. What I would say is that I really felt like when I left this, that I had a much better idea of Matt and Anis's characters than I did of Ruben's. Ruben, I think that I got a lot more of the inspirations and the ideas behind them, and not as much who they really are and the depth of them. And so for next time, I would say focus on that and really, really give us who that person is. I like that you put a little bit of yourself in there too, which I think is very important. But yeah, just next time I would say just give us a bit more, because that's literally the only thing that edged you out here. I'm sorry, homie.
It's okay.
But
good
again,
job, though. Seriously, everybody.
You don't have to go anywhere, Ruben, because now it's Chuck's turn to ask questions. And Chuck actually has 2 rounds to decide who the winner of this will be. So he doesn't actually have to eliminate in this next round. He can actually wait till the very last question he asks, because mathematically Chuck screwed up. I told him he didn't have to eliminate anyone, but he did it anyway. I'm disappointed. He didn't have to. See, he's just being mean to you guys. No. I screwed up. I'll take the hit on that one. That was me. I didn't realize, because I was still counting Anthony being in the round. So I had it all in my mind, and I was like, wait, Anthony never showed up. Oops, that's on me. What can you do? I kept everyone.
You better work on another book soon, because now that Jonathan's about to fire me, I'm going to need a book from you, all right? Wow, you screwed me.
All right. Chuck's turn. Ask your question.
We're down to Matt and Anis. I got 4 good ones here. You know what? Let's play a little bit, because we do have 2 to go. What genre of music or bands would make up the soundtrack for your series, and why? Anis, let's hear from you first.
There's a group called Delphic. They're from Stockport near Manchester, and I absolutely love their music. It's kind of like electro funk, just dance music, but there's a mix. It's kind of there's a song called Acolyte, and it's purely instrumental, and also they do have other songs, but which aren't dance, and they're very sort of there's a lot of ambience to it, and it's very melodic. So definitely if you check out Delphic, they're not around as much now, but I went to Ministry of Sound when they were doing a DJ set. But I think it's just kind of, they really capture the mood, especially if you're very sort of one of those people who gets depressed really easily. This kind of really, sort of heightens that, but not in a bad way, and kind of like captures you, so yeah.
I think if I'm going to pick anything, it's going to be an orchestra, because nothing's going to capture the mood of just high seas terror. I don't think then an orchestra. Get some really good low string instruments for some of the real more tense scenes with the whale, or some really over-the-top brass for some of the more exciting moments. And if I have to pick a specific orchestra, I'm going to pick the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, because they performed with my favorite band, which is Metallica.
Man, you left out New York Philharmonica? Oh, man. You're dead to me, Matt. You're dead to me. Ruben, who would you get?
I gotta go with Matt too, man. I think that the world of the agency, even though I'm sure Riley in his headphones is bumping something like Joyner Lucas or The Baby or something like that, just because it's his kind of age range music. For me, like, it would be Hans Zimmer. Hans Zimmer will definitely, if I ever get the chance to make a live action movie, that I would beg the studio to bring in Hans Zimmer. I think his sound, the way he does things, would definitely elevate the world of the agency. And I can just hear, like, just the stuff that he did for the Joker, like those one notes, that it continuously climbing and climbing as it builds, as the action builds. And then it just lets out into like this beautiful orchestra of strings and brass, like Matt was saying. So to me, like, that's how I envision it. When I'm writing the agency, I throw on a lot of John Williams, a lot of Hans Zimmer, just because those two guys pretty much soundtracked my childhood and my life up to this point.
Man, it's a good thing you got eliminated in the last round. You missed Wu-Tang Clan. How could you not put
Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to mess with.
I'm heartbroken. He's got a hoodie and all. All right. Jonathan, who would be the soundtrack?
I'd say it'd be early Beastie Boys. I can see Derek Davidson and his buddy Harry, who are both kind of a social outcast that are maybe after school they go into back to each other's house, they play some video games, they crank up License to Ill or Ill Communications, and it's that type of theme where it's a little bit of hip hop without being the gang banging, gangster hip hop, but with enough rock and roll to headbang too at the same time. And I can picture those two after school playing video games, knowing all the words and the lyrics and playing that stuff on loop.
All right, judge away.
Well, luckily I don't have to get rid of anyone this round. Matt, I love that you mentioned San Francisco, because I'm a big metalhead too. So when you went there, and it's funny because I was going to specifically ask you, I was going to do my first follow-up and say, okay, but which orchestra or which conductor or whatever. So I love that you went there on your own. And I was very excited because now I get to look into a new band. Mm-hmm. So I wrote that down. So I was very excited about that. And guys, your choices, Hans Zimmer, you couldn't have nailed it more. For most of us, we're kind of all in that age range where that did fuel our childhoods. So great answer. And Beastie Boys, who the fuck doesn't like the Beastie Boys? Yeah, dude. So yeah, that was a good one. Really glad I didn't have to knock anyone out. Why don't we do one last one? I loved, for you two, you guys did so well on the character thing that you guys inspired me to ask this question, because now you got to the heart. Now we're gonna rip in just a little bit further. Guess what? Congratulations. There's a real Hollywood movie being made about your story. And you've been asked to pick who's going to star as your main character. Who and why would they do the best version of your character? Matt, let's go with you this time.
Well, I'm going to go with Ahab if I'm going to cast somebody, because he was the most fun for me to work with in this story, and it's got to be Patrick Stewart. because I want to see some of that over-the-top angry Picard brought into this version of Ahab, who has been hunting this whale at this point for like 150 plus years. Nobody could bring that over the top level in a way that I could really buy into, like Patrick Stewart, I don't think.
Okay.
I'm going to use Cara Delevingne. Actually, she was my inspiration for the Blonde Bombshell. The thing I love about her is that there's so many different sides to her. She is, she can be sort of, somebody who is compliant, or she can be like a really pain in the ass, and the other thing is that she's, there's something about her, the way she looks, and she's not straightforward, she's, my character's bisexual, and, and that Cara Delevingne represents, sort of the, the openness to different sexualities, and also that she's an intellectual blonde. She's just not a, pretty picture, there's more to her than you see. So yeah, that's her. She's already been in a sort of a sci-fi I just recently watched. I forgot what it was called, but she did all right. But I think she'd do a lot better in mine.
Well, I would hope that if Capable got adapted to a Hollywood movie, that it would be done in the style of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, that animated, a very stylistic feel. So with that being said, I'd like to cast Tyler James Williams as the voice of Derek Davidson. And if you're not familiar with that actor, he was the star of that show Everybody Hates Chris, that was produced by Chris Rock. So I picture his voice as Derek, but I couldn't see it. I just can't see it as a live action movie for some reason.
For me, it would be Jaden Martell. He's Bill, what's his name? Yeah, well, he's in It, and he's in Knives Out, and he just did Defending Jacob with Chris Evans. I just love this kid's range, man. Like, he's got like this capability of in Knives Out of just being like that weird teenager in the bathroom texting, like avoiding his family. In It, he is a natural leader. And in Defending Jacob, he is a lost teenager who's in a situation that he doesn't know how to deal with. So this kid has definitely hit every note. And to be honest with you, I feel like if I threw a red hoodie on him, he kind of, other than the blonde hair, we'd have to dye his hair blonde. But other than that, he looks a lot like Riley.
Tough choice, shot, but
yeah, right.
Before he makes his introduction, you know what happens at this point. Right before the big elimination, there's a commercial break.
Be a pair. Be professional. Be ethical. Be authentic. Be respectful. Remember, in this industry for comics, be a pair. Art provided by Chris Mad. Look up Chris Mad Art on Facebook today.
All right, so here we are, the grand finale. We're gonna Ruben and Matt. Jonathan. I'm gonna move you guys out just for a minute so we can have the final two. But you'll be right back in to tell everyone where to follow you guys. So
sounds good.
Don't go anywhere. All right, so here we go. This is it.
So, before I get into it, I'm so glad Ruben wasn't in this round because his answer killed everybody. It was so good. I swear he knew that question was coming because he really did have it down. And I really liked Jonathan's answer too, because that same actor did an amazing job on The Walking Dead. Absolutely fantastic job. I really wish his character would have stuck around. So really great picks by everybody. Damn. Okay, guys, this was tough. You guys both fought this out. Seriously, I'm so proud of both of you guys. You really did it. Matt, through this whole thing, you were, for the most part, my top guy. I was like, oh, damn, you brought it every single time. You really showed how strong you know your story, how well you know your characters, and you brought it every time. If I'm being 100% honest and I'm really ripping into everything, it all comes down to the fact that Anis answered the last question better than you, in my mind. I think she really got to it. She really knew that character so well, and it really came from that. And it really, literally only comes down to the last question. So, Matt, Thank you so much. You did a wonderful job. And Anis, way to go, hon. You won. Like, that was great.
Matt, I couldn't have lost it. Well, I couldn't have won. Sorry.
Matt, I haven't gotten
In my head, you were the winner.
Matt, I haven't gotten to do this the whole show. I'm sorry it has to be, but I'm sorry. You are the weakest link. All right, let's bring up the video and let's play the circumstance. And what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to the Indiegogo platform itself. We're calling it up now because this is not a pre-scripted show, so we are loading it right now, and I'm bringing it up. So let me do a stop screen share and bring up the new screen.
So now, Anis, you can cry and you can be like, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was me."
I thought Matt was gonna win.
All right, so we get to ask you any questions. First, we're going to play the video, and then we're going to spend 5 minutes just asking you random stuff that we said. First off, I'm still thinking about her having that Deadpool dirty mouth.
Should be good, yeah.
Like it all fits. It all fits.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Ivor is a cyberpunk comic book series based on a love of 80s sci-fi and fantasy fiction. The story is set in the Ardent Nation, an upbeat, stylized technological utopia set in the 23rd century. However, all is not what it seems. Individuality and privacy are rare commodities that only the governing elite are privileged to. So imagine, if you will, social media becoming the governing body of a surviving nation. Everything about you and what you do since the day you were born is automatically streamed onto your timeline. This is then monitored by a totalitarian regime known as Mainframe. Mainframe's prime directive is to compete for technological advancement and for survival in a post-apocalyptic world. In the spirit of fighting cyber terrorism, people of the Ardent Nation are kept on a short leash through the use of surveillance implants. The message is simple: comply with Mainframe's standard behavior protocol or be rehabilitated. It's all about working as a collective for a common cause while suppressing any scope for individual thought and self-expression. Ivor Donnell is very much attached to her way of thinking, and this becomes a thorn in Mainframe's side. She's a highly strung bioengineer who, as we follow her journey of self-discovery, we learn about her past with the reformists and her present agenda, which could lead to the ultimate betrayal. The reformists are a rebellion group in the eyes of the Ardent Nation. Their ideology rejects invasive technology to protect the human spirit and embrace individuality. Ironically, the reformists use an interdimensional portal to keep themselves tucked away from the clutches of Mainframe. Ivor started off as a TV screenplay which explores conflict between differing ideologies. Due to the storyline and the stylized visuals, it naturally evolved into a graphic novel. Ivor is now complete and ready for publication. It's a labour of love that's been brought to life by the epic illustrative skills of Timothy Green II. It's an extraordinary journey, one of which we hope our readers will join us on.
Now that's how you video. That's got some Hollywood production value right there.
Thank you. Can I just say we're actually working on the trailer version, which will only be about a minute long, because I know we talked about it being way too long, more like an interview rather than a trailer. So that's currently in sort of production.
I just know I'm looking forward to now looking at this and thinking of her thinking dirty thoughts in a Deadpool.
Yes, a female version of Deadpool. Yeah, just think that.
so much better all of a sudden. So, Chuck, what questions do you have as the judge for her?
Well, first off, I'm really glad to see that you went in and you decided to change your video. It was perfect for here, but let's say we were doing like Kickstarter pause, it definitely would have gotten paused. I think that was a smart move. It's very important for you to want to get everyone to watch the whole thing. Yeah. And so that's a lot for people. I think that you would have a really hard time getting people to watch the whole thing for a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo. Yeah. Yeah. So smart move. Wow, that's tough. I feel like we got to know you and what you were doing so well. We got to know your main character. Do you have a secondary character that you'd like to tell us a little bit about?
The second, there is a character he's called Agent Tyra Sadara, and basically his mission is to try to get her to spy on the faction group, and sorry. So he's a bit of a psychopath, also, or a sociopath, that he doesn't he doesn't have any regard for human life, and so he will stop at nothing to get what he wants, and he's very manipulative as well. So he basically is trying to turn her and get her to work for him. And sort of the thing about there are a few sort of antagonists. There is another one, General Helena Orion. Imagine Helen Mirren as, somebody who's very menacing with so many implants. She's just no longer human. And she is kind of the leader of, sort of a third party she's very kind of destructive and pretty much all powerful, and it's a battle of wills. It's pretty much like a chess game going on, and it's all about survival in a very sort of hard hit planet Earth.
That's really cool. And of course I love Helen Mirren. She was amazing in Red, which was a really great badass portrayal by her.
She can be badass if she wants to, and imagine her in a sci-fi, with sort of implants where she's like completely gone cyberpunk. I think she'd be brilliant in it. And I think that'd be killer. She'd tick the box on kind of a diversity of age and gender and sort of people from different ethnic backgrounds. So that I've tried to be really inclusive.
Good stuff. And so we didn't get to hear much about your comic book influences. So do you have comic book influences that have excited you and enticed you that have brought you to this point?
I think, when I sort of found Aeon Flux, the graphic novel that Timothy Green did, that's kind of what sort of started me off on the track of, I can do this. And I absolutely love his style. He's really good at capturing somebody's soul.
Oh, look at you.
So, who else? Tokyo Ghost, that's another one that I really liked. And what else? The Crow, definitely The Crow, because sort of going back to sort of, feeling, going through bereavement, that really touched me. And, in the spirit of The Crow, what I did was I did a dedication to my late husband. And so you'll see that on the back of the front cover. It's kind of pretty much like putting my heart onto sort of, mine's 28 pages. So, it's putting my heart and soul into the first issue and hopefully continuing on from there.
Sorry, go.
I was going to say, I brought in all the contestants in case any of you guys had a question for her. Anyone have a question for Dick or anything like that? I figured we'd all been through this together. It was a great show. Maybe there are questions, or for each other. I figured we'd open it up.
I wouldn't mind hearing sort of what their sort of inspiration is, rather than having me on the hot seat.
Well, I did want to ask, how did you hook up with the artist of Eon Flux?
What I did was I just went on, I Googled him, and then I found his work on DeviantArt, and you can message anyone on there, and he's freelancing, so he's available to work with anyone who's got a story that he's interested in. So yeah, and I count myself very lucky because he is just so super talented. If you see his work on DeviantArt, it's just really absolutely breathtaking, and you do get a sense of that person's soul in the imagery. So yeah, we've all gone quiet now.
I know, right? What about the rest of you guys? I think Rob said it real quick, but what about the rest of you guys? What are your comic book influences as far as getting into this story, and then just in general? Ruben.
For me, I grew up on 90s Marvel, so there's really nothing else other than that. And then, as I started to get away from comics, and I left it alone for a little while, what brought me back was Robert Kirkman. And then recently, Joshua Williamson, who does, just an incredible job on The Flash for DC. And he also has several books on Image, Nailbiter, Ghosted. Ghosted was probably the book that really made me think, like, hold on, you really, it's not just superheroes and capes. There's actual real people inside these panels, and people are interested in those kinds of stories as well. So for me, Ghosted is what made me want to tell a story that, yeah, it's fantasy and it's got magic, but deep down, it's about how these people become a family and how they kind of interplay with each other and interact with each other. So yeah, those are basically my inspirations.
Jonathan?
For Capable, I think the obvious one, since the main character is a speedster, is the Flash. And like Ruben said, Josh Williams' run on, or no pun intended, his run on the Flash has been phenomenal. And Jeff Johns, when he had the title. But as far as the dialogue goes for Capable, I really pulled from 90s Chuck Dixon when he was writing the Robin solo series, because I was in high school during that time, and I could relate to how well he wrote those characters when they were walking through hallways and things like that. So I really wanted to revisit. Chuck Dixon's one of my favorite writers of all time anyway, so to have to name drop him. So, but yeah, a lot of the 90s solo Robin stuff, Flash, and also I think the Flash has some of the coolest villains with his rogues. Just a lot of them have nothing to do with speed. You have Captain Cold, Heat Wave, and so forth. But it's still they pose a threat to him, and I think that's challenging as a writer. So I sought out that type of storyline where I'm going to challenge myself to not be like a one-trick pony when it comes to telling a speedster story.
Matt?
I'd say a lot of my inspiration for stories, my favorite storytellers were, of course, Eastman and Laird, their original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles stories. Not just because they were black and white, which my comic is, but they did what I talked about a while back with the taking something absurd and really putting some real humanity to it. It's like these mutant ninja turtles, there was more to them than just this goofy idea. Everybody initially thought it was just a parody of what was popular at the time, but as the comics went on and as you read more of them, these are real characters, and like the teenage aspect really becomes pivotal to their stories, like how these kids effectively are dealing with like this Shredder supervillain, and the fact that they have to live in the sewers in order to survive. And another one of my favorites is Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, and he does the same thing. You have this character who is this demon from hell meant to bring about the end of the world, but underneath that, he's a teenager too. He's really just a kid in our eyes, and it's all about, most of the stories are all about how this kid, as he grows up, deals with the fact that he's not just a normal kid like everybody else. He's a kid who is destined to bring about the end of the world. And gosh, what would that be like? So all those are a lot of my early inspirations.
That's cool. I only have the one last question that I'd love to ask the group, and we'll end with the champ on that question. So we'll start with Matt and we'll go backwards. Guys, so much of our audience is comic creators, other indie, up and coming indie comic creators. So out of kind of your peers and the books that you've been seeing around and whatnot, which books do you most digging right now and really exciting in our indie comic world? Matt, we'll start with you this time.
Anything different. That's what really gets me interested, because with all due respect to Marvel and DC, I mean, I grew up with them. Superman is still my favorite. So much of what they put out now is just recycled. I mean, Superman died once, he came back from the dead, and then I think he's done it in various ways 2 or 3 other times. Captain America, Green Lantern, nobody stays dead in comics. Nothing really matters because we have to keep on recycling it for a new generation. But on the indies, that's where you see people really trying new stuff because they're not bound by the constrictions, I guess, of these publishing houses that have to meet these specific marketing demands of what's going to sell. They just have a story that they're passionate about that they want to get out there. And I feel like I see that passion a lot more in independent comics and stories than you do from the major publishers.
John, I saw you go to your bookshelf, so I think you got examples for us.
Yeah. Yes. So what I've backed almost at my 50th project that I've backed. And one of the ones I've backed recently is called Merrick, the Sensational Elephant Man. And Matt mentioned Mike Mignola, Hellboy. I'm a big fan of Hellboy as well. I have most of the library editions. And this art by a gentleman named Luke Parker, he might as well be like a clone of Mike Mignola. So, and then the art, writer Tom Ward, just to take a true life character like the Elephant Man and elaborate on that more, but with such a beauty and grace where it's not offensive to his legend. It is just phenomenal. It's one of those books that you see, and I feel I'm jealous that I didn't think about it first. I'm like, damn, I wish I would have come up with that, and now I can't. But
I've been there.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a cool one, and there's just so many good stuff lately out there in the indie world, and that's why I miss the cons so much, because I go around everyone's booth and pick things up and discover new things, and I'd forget all about any of the big two creators that were there. I can get that anytime, and it's just a rehash of Captain America over and over again, Captain Marvel number 13, number 1 or whatever. So yeah, we're indies breathing life into the comic book industry for sure.
Good, man. Good. Ruben, what about yourself, bud? You're on mute, just so you're aware.
There we go.
There you go.
Technically challenged. So I'm going to name drop a few people just because not only have they inspired me to keep going and doing the things that I'm doing, they've also made their way and become very successful, whether it's through Kickstarter or getting publishing deals. One of those people is a good friend of mine who was on Think Alike Productions and now is at Source Point Press, Bob Sally. He's got a gorgeous book, Broken Gargoyles, that is being drawn by Stan Yak, who I mean, I don't even know what to say about that guy. That guy's art is just on another level. Yeah, he's just on something else. And then recently I've been able to connect with Mike Tenner, who does Black Jackets. Man, are you kidding me? Like you talk about, Jonathan, you talk about jealous. That's how I get when I see something that I love, that I immediately gravitate towards. I immediately become jealous of it. And I've become jealous of all of you because to be honest with you, I mean, Matt, I love Stephen King and I love zombies. I actually got to spend some time with George A. Romero before he passed. My last name is Romero. We bonded over that. He told me, hey, tell everybody I'm your grandfather. So I'm jealous of your zombie whale. Jonathan,
I'm jealous of you. What are you talking about?
yeah. I got to spend quite a bit of time with him at a show, and it was really just crazy how much time he took with me. And I think it was because my last name was Romero, and I brought him my book, and I was just like fanboying big time because I think I've seen Night of the Living Dead a million times. Like I've
got to hear this story someday.
Right. Oh well, we'll connect on Facebook too. Cool. And then Jonathan, of course, I mean, just taking that subject matter, handicap people or handicapable or however you want to look at it, whatever term you want to use, and flipping it on its ear and giving them superpowers and then turning around and not allowing everybody to inherently be good. Right? Like, yeah, I was in a wheelchair, but now I can fly. I'm gonna fly off with this Brinks truck. Like, this is what I wanted for, and of course, and cyberpunk, anything immediately catches my attention. And one thing that stuck with me about what you said was you were tired of these depressing dystopian, type of stories. And yes, there's some of that in your book, but you've given us this whole other layer of what the future could be. So to me, I mean, hats off to all of you because you've impressed me. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of a stickler. I'm almost snobby when it comes to like what I give my time to, and all of you I will be looking out for, and all of you I will be checking out your books and your projects. And if my wallet doesn't allow me to back you now, my Twitter and my Facebook feed will be filled with your stuff, just because again I do this because you do it, and without you there would be no me.
All right, guys, it's that time to say goodbye. Of course, the winner gets to close the show. But we're going to start what, Chuck?
The champ didn't get to answer the question.
Well, I figured she gets to end the show with answering.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying? I want to give her the entire end of the show. I'm just trying to be nice here. She gets.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Honestly, it's been a really enjoyable, for me, evening. And, I've learned so much, and I'll definitely be looking out for you all. So keep a lookout. Just to answer the question, I am, indebted to Timothy Green II, and he has his own projects that he's working on. They're all a labor of love. And, I have so much admiration and respect for him. And if you can check him out on patreon.com, Studio Midori. He's got 4 projects going on, which is Delos, Dragonline, Basement Land, and The Doldrums. And he's actually doing sort of short animation as well. So, sort of so much love for him. I can't big him up enough, so yeah. And to sign off, definitely check out my sort of Indiegogo campaign for Iva issue 1. Mainframe is watching. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under the name of Iva Comic. It's really something that you should definitely have a look into. And even if you can't contribute, just like us or leave us a comment. We'll be really happy to get that support. All right, and thank you for allowing me to win. I really appreciate it. I have to say it was tough all the way, and I really thought Matt was gonna win.
Well, nobody else did. You guys.
He's too good. I was like, no way, I'm never gonna win to him.
You have to lose to a bombshell. That's one better way to go.
Think you lost
that makes
to
a
bombshell. You had no chance. Whale, blonde bombshell.
No. Now we're zombie dick.
Sorry. Yeah. Zombie dick. Oh my god.
All right.
It's a whole new comic.
Before we get kicked off Facebook, I want to thank everyone for playing. Everyone won today. They brought their passion. I hope we entertained you at home, and I hope we inspired you, more importantly, to support people who are on Kickstarter and crowdfunding. Thank you all for taking part of today. And very important message as we go out the door is to
Remember to be kind and share.